Listen carefully because what I am about to tell you has the potential to rewrite the future of every American living on Social Security. Something just flipped inside the system and almost nobody saw it coming. While most people were asleep, a quiet move inside Washington was set into motion, and now experts are calling it the most important Social Security shift in decades. And here is the part that is catching everyone off guard. The trigger appears to be connected directly to a signature from the president. For the past week, there have been whispers, a draft memo circulating among Senate staffers, a late-night comment from a senior White House official, and then confirmation that the president personally requested a review of 3 Social Security mechanisms that have been untouched for over 40 years. These mechanisms determine how your check is calculated, how fast it grows, and what you actually receive at the end of each month. And if even one of these mechanisms gets rewritten, the impact will not be small. It will be historic. But here is the strange part. None of this made mainstream headlines. No breaking alerts, no big announcement on television, nothing. It happened quietly, tucked behind larger stories like it was not meant to be noticed yet. And that is why people are calling this a flip, because the usual process of slow public discussion simply did not happen this time. Instead, it looks like internal pressure, private meetings, and policy drafts were pushed forward faster than expected. So, what exactly was pushed forward and why now? According to insiders, the focus is on a potential rewrite of how Social Security prioritizes payments, how cost of living adjustments are calculated, and how certain income groups are treated under a new benefit model. And if this model moves forward, it could be the biggest structural change since the 1983 Social Security Reform Act. That was the last time the system was fundamentally altered. But the difference is, back then it took months of public hearings and massive debate. Today we are seeing something almost the opposite. Quiet acceleration, almost no debate, and a growing sense that something major is about to drop. Now, here is where it gets even more interesting. Internal Social Security Administration analysts have already flagged that the changes being discussed would directly affect current retirees, future retirees, supplemental security income recipients, Social Security disability insurance recipients, widows, survivors, and disabled workers. In other words, if you receive a check from Social Security in any form, you are part of this story. And if you are planning to retire soon, you are also part of it. And before you think this is just another rumor, let me be clear. This is not coming from random sources. The memo was referenced by a senior policy advisor who rarely comments publicly. He said the review order came in faster than any revision he has seen in his 19 years in Washington. His exact words were, "Something just flipped inside the Social Security Administration." And that statement alone is what turned this into national attention behind the scenes. So now the big question becomes, what exactly changed? Who does it help? And who could lose? And more importantly, why is this being pushed at this moment when inflation, federal debt, and retiree pressure are all at their highest levels in years? Those answers start to reveal themselves once you dig into what was reviewed behind closed doors. Because when you look at the documents, you start to notice a pattern forming, one that points toward a new kind of benefit model that has not been tested before. First, let us get into what actually changed behind the scenes, because this is where the real story begins. When the memo first surfaced, most people did not understand its importance. But once analysts started connecting the dots, it became clear that this was not routine maintenance or a technical update. This was a structural review ordered at the highest level targeting 3 parts of Social Security that have been untouchable for decades. The first major point in the draft memo is a review of the COLA system, the cost of living adjustment that determines how much your check goes up each year. For years, seniors have complained that the COLA does not reflect real inflation, especially housing, food, and medical costs. And according to one analyst, the team is examining an alternative COLA formula that could dramatically change how increases are calculated. Her exact phrase was, "The intention appears to be a recalibration that aligns increases with lived economic conditions rather than outdated formulas. That one sentence has created more debate in Washington than any Social Security comment in the past 7 months. The second part of the review focuses on payment prioritization. This is the part that almost no one understands unless they work inside the Social Security Administration. Payment prioritization determines who gets paid first if the system faces stress or delays. Up until now, the rules were rigid and based on decades-old economic models. But the draft memo suggests a new prioritization model built around vulnerability, not status. That means lower-income retirees, disabled workers, and supplemental security income recipients could be moved into a higher priority tier during economic instability. If implemented, this would be the first structural realignment of its kind. Then there is the third point, and this is the one raising the most eyebrows in Congress. It is called the dividend redistribution model. This appears to be the early framework of a proposal linking excess tariff revenue, corporate penalties, and certain federal surpluses into a recurring pool that could boost Social Security payments for selected groups. The language in the memo is vague, but clear enough to suggest that the presidential signature triggered a deeper financial review of how external revenue streams could support seniors. And for many experts, that is the biggest signal that something serious is being built behind closed doors. And here is the key detail that only a handful of people caught. On page 7 of the memo, in a section marked Preliminary Analysis, there is a statement noting that the proposed adjustments would shift benefit distribution patterns in unprecedented ways. That phrase, shift benefit distribution patterns, is exactly what is causing economists to warn that this might be the start of a completely new Social Security era. To add more weight to all this, a Senate Finance Committee note circulated last Friday confirming that the request for this review was categorized as high priority. That category is almost never used unless something is time-sensitive or politically critical. And the fact that this category was assigned without public announcement is why people are calling it the Social Security flip. So why is this happening now? According to insiders, there is expressed concern that the current system is not keeping up with inflation, not protecting the most vulnerable, and not rewarding lifetime workers fairly. The administration has always hinted at wanting to modernize Social Security. But now, with inflation pressures and federal debt reaching extreme levels, the timing of this review is raising questions. Is this about stabilizing the system, reshaping it, or preparing for a bigger fiscal plan? No matter the reason, one thing is clear. The changes being reviewed are not cosmetic. They are foundational. They touch the formulas, the payment structure, and the financial backbone of the program itself, and if even one of these elements moves forward, the outcome will affect millions of Americans directly. But here is where the story takes an even more surprising turn. When analysts examined which groups were most affected by the draft models, it was not the groups anyone expected. In fact, the first group flagged in the internal analysis shocked almost everyone who saw it. Now, the part that matters most to you, how these behind-the-scenes changes could hit your wallet, because once analysts broke down the draft models, the results were shocking. Some groups stand to gain more than they ever have, while others could see adjustments they never expected. And the order of who benefits first is not what anyone predicted. According to the internal Social Security Administration analysis, the very first group flagged under the proposed changes is fixed income seniors earning under $32,000 a year. This group has been hit hardest by rising prices, and under the new recalibration model, they could receive a higher COLA boost than the general population. The memo highlights that this group faces the steepest pressure from housing and medical inflation, and that the traditional COLA formula fails to capture their real expenses. So, if the alternative COLA model is approved, low-income retirees could finally see increases that actually match the inflation they feel every day. Next on the list are supplemental security income and Social Security disability insurance recipients. This is where things get interesting, because for years, these groups have been stuck with some of the strictest and outdated income rules in the Social Security system. The prioritization model being reviewed suggests that these payments could be moved into a protective tier during economic instability. And in simple terms, that means if the economy hits turbulence, they would be among the first to be paid, not the last. For millions living with disabilities, this shift could be life-changing. But then comes the twist. The group most analysts expected to benefit first, high-earning beneficiaries, is actually the one listed lowest in the priority structure. Under the dividend redistribution model, individuals with higher lifetime income or large retirement savings may see smaller adjustments compared to lower-income groups. The memo does not say cuts, but it uses a term that raised alarms, recalibrated expectations. That phrase usually indicates a softer growth curve for higher income recipients if new revenue is redistributed toward more vulnerable groups. Early retirement filers also appear on the list, but with mixed outcomes. If the new COLA model is fully adopted, early retirees could see a slight advantage in the first few years, but that advantage levels off later. Economists believe this is because the new formula ties adjustments more closely to real-world inflation, meaning the biggest gains go to those with the tightest financial margins. It is a targeted approach, but one that not everyone will benefit from equally. Now, let us talk numbers because the memo contains several projected scenarios. One model estimates that low-income seniors could receive between 3 to 6% higher yearly adjustments under the revised COLA. Another scenario shows supplemental security income recipients receiving early first-quarter adjustments during periods of high inflation rather than waiting until the following year. And one projection under the dividend redistribution model suggests an additional supplemental payment for select groups if tariff and penalty revenue exceeds projections. These are early estimates, but they give us a glimpse of how the structure could shift. And here is the emotional reality behind these numbers. For millions of seniors, especially those living alone or dealing with medical issues, even a few extra dollars each month can be the difference between choosing groceries or prescriptions. When inflation eats into fixed incomes, every adjustment matters. This is why analysts are calling the proposed switch a redistribution of protection, not just of payments, but of financial stability. But the part that truly shocked economists is not the COLA change or the prioritization shift. It is a detail hidden on page 14 of the memo in a section titled Structural Consequences. That section outlines how the new revenue model could create entirely new tiers of benefit distribution. Instead of the traditional one-size-fits-all system, payments could be tailored based on vulnerability, economic pressure, and lifetime earnings. This model is unlike anything Social Security has ever tested, and if it is implemented, it could completely rewrite how your benefits are calculated. And here is the suspenseful part. The memo hints that this new structure may roll out in phases, with some groups seeing changes as early as next year. That is why understanding this update is not optional. It is essential because the decisions being made now will shape your monthly income, your retirement stability, and your long-term security. But before you panic or celebrate, there is something else you need to know. These changes do not become real until a final review is completed, and the timelines inside the memo reveal something surprising. Something that affects every retiree, every future retiree, every supplemental security income and Social Security disability insurance recipient, and everyone planning their financial future. So now the question becomes, what happens next? Because everything in this memo points to one thing: movement, not theories, not ideas floating around in Washington, but actual movement inside the Social Security system. And the next few months are going to determine how much of this becomes reality and how much remains behind the scenes. According to the internal schedule linked to the review request, the Social Security Administration must submit a preliminary readiness report within the next 60 days. That means analysts are already modeling scenarios, testing formulas, and preparing outlines for possible implementation. And here is the important part for you. Once that readiness report is filed, the earliest changes could begin appearing on individual Social Security Administration portals shortly after. Not the full changes, but markers, notifications, and eligibility updates that hint at what is coming. That is why experts are urging seniors, disabled workers, early filers, and future retirees to monitor their portals carefully. If you see new tabs, new notices, or new preview information, do not ignore them. Those early indicators will tell you which version of the model is being prepared and whether you fall into the group that receives adjustments first. Staying informed is not a luxury right now. It is a shield. Now, let us talk about timelines. The memo outlines 3 phases for potential rollout. Phase 1 focuses on recalculating the COLA under the alternative model. Phase 2 handles payment prioritization for vulnerable groups during inflationary spikes or economic stress.